If I pose the question, what is climate change? Some things may come to mind at first, such as the ice caps are melting, the oceans are getting warmer, longer summers, general global warming of the planet. While these things are very objectively true, there are a lot of different moving pieces and details that people tend not to think about or not know very well when coming to climate change, namely how the oceans are truly affected or how ecosystems are affected. My name is Oliver Deng, and today my associates Jacob Maslonka and Kenneth Stratton will be diving into deeper detail on how these processes work. We all know that the ice caps are melting, and this contributes to the rising sea levels. Due to the melting of the ice caps, the ecosystems in the northern regions and southern regions of the world, namely the Arctic Circle and Antarctica, have their ecosystems negatively impacted by the melting of this ice. To start off our presentation, Kenneth Stratton will be discussing how the ocean is affected by climate change, followed by Jacob Maslonka, who will be discussing how ecosystems and animals are affected around the world. Without further ado, I present Kenneth Stratton.
Hi, my name is Kenny, and today my topic is about how global warming affects our oceans and the effect that can stem from those changes. First, I will talk about the commonly known effects of rising sea levels and discuss rising sea temperatures. And I will conclude everything with how these changes can impact global climate. First, I mentioned the rising sea levels due to the melting of polar ice caps. While this doesn't sound inherently daunting, only 2% of the land in the world is within 10 meters of elevation from the ocean. The problem stems in that approximately 10% of the world's population lives in that 2% of land. This would destroy cities and displace many people. Next, I mentioned a rise in the average temperature of the ocean. While this effect is largely unknown, the ocean has absorbed approximately 80% of the heat that has been added to the Earth's system due to global warming. And as a result, this causes coral bleaching. Coral bleaching is when the temperature of the ocean is too high and causes the starvation and shrinkage, even sometimes death of the corals that live in coral reefs, which support thousands of living species. So, to sum everything up and put these two problems together, the rising sea level can change the ocean currents, which have an impact on wind currents in the world, which then impact temperatures and rainfall all across the world. So these are very important problems that could change the climate of the entire globe. So our next speaker is Jacob, who will discuss the effects of global warming on animals. Thank you.
It is a common misconception that global warming heats up the Earth in an even fashion. As one area gets warmer, so will another. However, it is more complex than that, and we are actually seeing some areas cool down as opposed to heating up. Either way, this can be very detrimental to the animal kingdom. Most species cannot adapt fast enough to the changes that are happening in their environments. On the other hand, there are those who have thrived despite all the negative consequences of global warming. What could have possibly benefited from global warming? One of the easier answers is agricultural plants like corn. From plant biology courses, I have learned that corn is a C4 grass. And to put it simply, C4 grasses prefer warmer temperatures. Corn has an optimum growing temperature of around 95 degrees Fahrenheit, which is easily maintained in the height of the growing season, which in Nebraska is July. Global warming will cause longer, hotter growing seasons, which will benefit agriculture up to a certain point. We also have a species of butterfly called the brown Argus butterfly in Britain. According to the Ecological Entomology Journal in 2008, the article "Escape from Natural Enemies During Climate-Driven Range Expansion, a Case Study" was written by Dr. Rosa Menendez, and that states that the butterfly's range has been expanded because of climate change, This has caused a shift in the population, increasing increasing their numbers both because of the expansion of their range and the lack of parasites in their new area to feed on them. However, most animals are not as lucky as the brown Argus butterfly. Many species have been negatively affected by climate change. Most of these species are highly specialized for their ecosystem and cannot survive without certain conditions being met. An article called 7 Species Hit Hard by Climate Change, including ones that are already extinct, by Christine Delamore, was published in 2014 in the National Geographic. In the article, she discusses the polar bear, which has seen major population drops with the loss of the Arctic sea ice in summer. This makes them have to find alternate food sources that are not in the sea, which is quite difficult in their environment. On the opposite pole, we have the Adelaide penguin. As Antarctic sea ice retreats, their main food source, krill, which lives on the bottom of these ice sheets, disappears. This makes them have to spend more energy looking for food instead of breeding and raising young, which is hurting their population. Unfortunately, some species have not been able to survive the changes. Amphibians are especially vulnerable to climate change because of how they evolved to use certain things like cutaneous respiration, which is just breathing through the skin. According to the same article by Christine Delamore, 2 amphibians that scientists have medium confidence that they became extinct because of climate change are the golden toad and the Monteverde harlequin frog. Both were from Central America and thought to have disappeared due to drought and other climatic factors, as well as a parasite. These are just a few of the species that have been impacted by climate change. While it has had some positive effects on some species, it has mainly been very detrimental to the survival of many species from all clades and groups. To conclude, we will turn back to Oliver. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. As has become clear now, climate change has a lot of different moving parts and details that are often overlooked by the majority of people. Namely, how the oceans are retaining much of the heat and causing issues for the coral life in the ocean all around the planet, and how different climates tend to warm up or cool down, positively impacting plants and negatively impacting animal life to the point of possible extinction. Now, when someone asks you, what is climate change? You can confidently tell them, in great detail, how some of the processes work and how it affects the planet on a whole. Thank you very much.